She just let her just suffer, and she just boiled to death.
Members of the jury, as we go through our lives, one of the early lessons we get is everybody makes mistakes. Most of the time, we apologize, we accept responsibility, and we move on. Unfortunately, some of us in this room might have learned sometimes sorry isn't enough for those mistakes. Sometimes those mistakes carry dire consequences, and sometimes those mistakes are crimes. And that's why we're here today. And I would argue to you that is why the legislature of the state of Florida passed the very laws we're here today that the defendant is accused of. So in order to discuss this case, to discuss the facts, what's important first is that we discuss what I believe you're going to be instructed on as far as the law related to this case is. You will receive copies of these, so please, you don't have to write furiously. What I believe the judge is going to tell you is to prove the crime of aggravated manslaughter, the state must prove the following three elements beyond a reasonable doubt. 1, Yuri Jane Schott is dead. 2, the death of Yuri was caused by the culpable negligence of Tracey Nix. 3, Yuri was at the time a child, and Yuri's death was caused by the neglect of Tracey Nix, a caregiver for Yuri. Now, I just want to get out in front of it and just tell you, I believe the crux of this case, what everybody's going to be talking about, what you yourselves are going to be talking about, is number 2. Culpable negligence. What is it? So, but it is my job, it is my burden as a state to prove the crimes. And even though 1 and 3 are not in dispute, we're going to talk about it, get those out of the way, and move on to the crux of the case. So, 1, Yuri Jane Schott is dead. The court instructed you. We've agreed. The parties have agreed. She's dead. That's not at issue. Skip to 3. Yuri was at the time a child. Once again, that's not in question. She was 7 months. And her death was caused by the neglect of Tracy Howard Nix, a caregiver for Yuri Jane Schott. Was caused by the neglect. So just from that point, just neglect. She left her in that car. That's not in dispute. What's in dispute is whether or not it's culpable negligence. There's no dispute on whether or not it's neglect. A caregiver. There's no question. As the judge will inform you, a caregiver means a parent, adult household member, or any other person responsible for the child's welfare. She was Yuri's grandma. She was the sole caregiver at that time for Yuri. Yuri was solely dependent on her for care. So I would argue to you, members of the jury, that 1 and 3 are not in dispute. So let's talk about 2. Before we get there, there's this language that we're going to get to in culpable negligence that may be confusing, but it's clarified by what the judge is going to instruct you on what neglect of a child means. It means a caregiver's failure or omission to provide a child with the care, supervision, and services necessary to maintain the child's physical and mental health, including but not limited to all this, for the well-being of the child. Here's the thing. Neglect may be based on repeated conduct or a single incident. Repeated conduct or a single incident. Or omission by that caregiver. They didn't do something. So I want you to keep that in mind, please. So we'll turn to it. The death of Yuri Jane Schott was caused by the culpable negligence of Tracy Howard Nix. Remember, it could be a single incident. I anticipate the judge is going to tell you that aggravated manslaughter, he's going to tell you at first, every person has a duty to act reasonably towards others. If there's a violation of that duty without any conscious intention to harm, that violation is negligence, simple negligence. So it's interesting, and I want to discuss that for a moment before we go on. How are you given the definition of culpable negligence? we define simple negligence. Culpable negligence is, you can have negligence, but it can become more based on the facts and circumstances. It's important. The definition of culpable negligence is started by giving you the definition of simple negligence. The defendant cannot be guilty of aggravated manslaughter by causing the death merely from a negligent act. But culpable negligence is more than the failure to use ordinary care. In order for the negligence to be culpable, it must be gross and flagrant. Culpable negligence is a course of conduct showing a reckless disregard for human life or the safety of persons exposed to its dangerous effects. See, that course of conduct is one way. Or safety of persons exposed to its dangerous effects. Safety of persons exposed to being left in a hot vehicle. It fits there. It fits there. Or shows wantonness or recklessness. Or grossly careless disregard for the safety and the welfare of the public, or indifference to the rights of others. The negligent act or omission must have been committed with utter disregard for safety of others. That's what we're talking about here. Those are the types of things that we're talking about. So when we start to talk about culpable negligence and what it is, that definition, I think, sets the stage of how you're to analyze. First, was there negligence? Second, was that culpable negligence? Follow that definition. So how do we determine what culpable negligence is? We just don't look at the act. We look at everything surrounding that act and the results of that act. That's what gives you culpability. That's what gives you criminal negligence. So in order to discuss that and have a conversation about that, I think we just need to go through briefly a rough timeline. We don't have anything set in stone, but we have good witnesses who testified, and we have an idea of exactly what happened that day. Around 9:30 to 11 a.m., there was some testimony, it might have been 10. Regardless, there was that prayer meeting. We heard from the two nice night ladies, Judy Terrell, the defendant herself. That's where she started out that day. Sometime between 11 and 12, she being the defendant, agreed to pick up Yuri that day. We know that she talked with Kayla. She at least messaged, and we do see on her phone around 11:18 that there was a conversation. Sometime between, and at that meeting is when they have from the prayer meeting from 9:30 to 11, lunch is discussed. We're going to meet at these. The agreement to pick up Yuri, I pick her up first. That's Gail goes along with her. Sometime between 12 and 12:30, we know from the time she had a beef, she got there around 12:30. Between 12 and 12:30, she picks up Yuri. When she goes and gets Yuri, she gets the diaper bag with the supplies. She gets everything she needs to provide the care a responsible caregiver would give to that child. She picks that up. She also picks up a car seat and places it in her back seat. Once again, a responsible caregiver. She's provided all of these tools to do what she needs to do. So she gets that car seat, places in the back seat of her car. 12:30 to 1:45 is roughly about the time that there are beeps. You saw the video, a portion of it. It's all there for you to review when you go back there if you choose to. We know around, it's that 1:45-ish area that she left, because one, we know from all the three ladies that were with her, Gail had to be out of there. And they know. They looked at their watch, and it was 1:40 when they started leaving. And we see on the Beef's video, which there's a timestamp on there too, that shows around the 1:43 they come out of the building. So we know she left around 1:45 with Yuri. And then she tells us in her statement she went straight home. No stops. And we know she's only about 3 miles away. About 8 minutes, 9 minutes, 10 minutes. So roughly 1:55 she gets home, gets out of her car, and leaves Yuri. The next thing we have is that 911 call. And we know that she made that 911 call at 5:05 p.m. We know it was after Rebecca made her call. So it's around that 5 o'clock hour that it's finally discovered that Yuri's in that car. 1:55, arrives home, exits the vehicle. We're going to say around 4:50, somewhere in there. 911 is called. That whole time in between, Yuri's left alone and forgotten in that vehicle. I do want to pause for a minute, speaking of the aggravated manslaughter, to address one other thing, the second count in this case. If you'll bear with me, we'll come back and we're going to talk a lot more about culpable negligence. But I think after seeing this, we're looking at almost 3 hours. It would be appropriate to discuss leaving a child unattended or unsupervised in the motor vehicle causing great bodily harm. What the judge is going to tell you, I have to prove to you that Tracey Nix was a person responsible for Yuri. Yuri was younger than 6 years of age. Tracey Nix left Yuri unattended or unsupervised in a motor vehicle for a period in excess of 15 minutes, or for any period of time if the health of that child was in danger. Members of the jury, when she shut that door and walked away, that child's health was in danger from that point. But there is no doubt that more than 15 minutes elapsed. And in doing so, Tracey Nix caused great bodily harm to Yuri. What greater bodily harm is there than death? That's all the time I'm going to spend on that count. I believe that count. It's unequivocal. It's there. So let's focus more on her actions. Let's talk about culpable negligence. Let's talk about wanton and reckless. We have to look at those circumstances surrounding. It's easy to say, oh, she just forgot. That's simple negligence. Well, that's the only way. If she did it on purpose, she'd be charged with murder. We charged her with culpable negligence. So yes, forgetting something is simple negligence. Forgetting to lock your door when you leave your house, simple negligence. Forgetting to take the food out of the stove, simple negligence. Maybe even forgetting that you were the parent that was supposed to pick up the child who's safe at school, but has to wait another 10 or 15 minutes because you forgot. Simple negligence. Leaving a child unattended in a car for 3 hours in the hot Florida sun baking. That's not simple. No matter how you slice it, that is not simple. Yuri's death was not simple. Let's talk about that. We have to look at those facts and circumstances. It's not just the forgetting, but we have to look at what her duty was that day. She was the sole person responsible for the most vulnerable thing we have in our society as human beings. A baby. A baby. You have a heightened duty. You're in charge of something that literally can't live without you. She can't open that car door. She can't even get herself out of that car seat. She can do nothing to protect herself. She relies on someone to do it for her. She relies on a responsible person who keeps her first in her mind, who knows her duty, who knows this is a great responsibility. And we know that she knew that, and we'll talk about that in a minute, because she did that earlier. But she just got back to the house. I'm home. Let me do what I need to do. Yuri deserved to be the primary focus in her mind that day. But she wasn't. And that goes towards the culpability. That goes towards the criminality of her negligence. That's why this happened. You have, when she is in your possession, she is your focus. She should be the first thing on your mind. Now, let's continue our discussion about the facts. She picked up Yuri. Now, I know it was something that she wasn't expecting to do, but she did. She picked her up. She went and she got the diaper bag, she got the car seat, she got these, as I said earlier, were the supplies to ensure this child's safety. Members of the jury, the diaper bag was entered into evidence. And all those supplies are still in here. And you could feel the weight almost as much as Yuri herself. She had everything she needed to protect her, to care for her, to ensure her survival. She had a car seat. She had everything she needed. She's the one who put it in there. At this point, Yuri should be the only thing on her mind. Yuri should be the primary focus on her mind. Again, the diaper bag. We can see the supplies, the bottles to feed her, the clothes to clothe her, the medications to give her. You can just see the volume of stuff that she had. Again, why do I show you all these things? These are the things that should push Yuri to the forefront, that should make her the priority. The car seat, placed in her vehicle. She's there. She's there. And what did she do when she went there? She didn't just immediately go home and say, oh, I forgot I had her. She went to lunch for an hour. Let's talk about that. The time it leaves. She's over there. She's there for over 1 hour. She comes in the restaurant. She didn't leave Yuri in the car then. Yuri's with her. She brought in the diaper bag. And as a matter of fact, you see constant attention on Yuri. As a matter of fact, Yuri was not only the center of attention for the defendant, she was the center of attention for everybody there. There's something innate in human beings. When you see an infant like that, there's just a need to protect, a need to pay attention. And you could see that in the people around her. You could see that in the defendant herself. So why is this important? As I stated earlier, there she is. On her lap. The focus of her attention. Oh, she almost pushed off the bottle. Again, this is the thing that should be reinforcing in this caregiver mind, in this caregiver's mind. This is something I need to protect. This is something I need to look out for. Then she left these. She took Yuri with her, didn't leave her in the restaurant, took her with her. Put her in the car seat. You can see the blanket over her shoulder. She brought everything out, didn't leave anything behind there. Took the diaper bag. And then what'd she do? Drove straight home. And we saw her when she was leaving these. There she is. Diaper bag, white blanket, baby in hand, even the food. Didn't leave the food behind, had a friend bring it. There it is. Being placed right in the vehicle, Yuri, in the car seat. She knows she has Yuri. She knew it. She placed her in that car seat, herself. That's right behind her driver's seat. She's driving an SUV, but it's not one of those giant SUVs. It's not a Hummer. It's a small vehicle. She put the diaper bag in there. She put the blanket in there. All these things. And then where'd she go?
Was it just you and Yuri on board? Okay. Which is the car with 3 apples. And about, no, when you got back to the house, did you make any stops in between?
No stops in between, straight home. Straight home from spending an hour at lunch, phoning over little Yuri. Didn't make any stops, no interruptions in between. Straight home. And what did she do when she got home? Well, parked her car, got out of her car, closed the door, and went about her business. What kinds of things was she doing?
And I played my piano. And I practiced for a long time. I can't believe I didn't even think of. So you went straight home and you started talking to your dog? Yes. Okay. And what's your dog's name again? Macy.
So what is she doing? She goes home, gets out of the vehicle, got to go talk to the dog. Got to go practice my piano. I'm working hard at it. As I said, got out of her car, Meanwhile, Yuri's left in that vehicle on a hot Florida 90-degree day. 3 hours. What is she doing in that 3 hours?
And when you went inside after getting home, what did you do?
I went and started walking in the piano. I think lessons I have one on Thursday, and I need to just put in time on it.
Okay.
She's practicing her piano, and Yuri's body is fighting the heat.
I was taking my other grandson. I was supposed to take him out for dinner.
Okay.
And I was impatient because they were about an hour behind. And I finally got in the car and went down to the barn because they had no piece of pig for 4-H pig. And all of a sudden, when I got out of the car, it came across my head that I had Yuri and what happened. It came to pick her up. I couldn't remember what happened.
She was more focused on her meeting that she had planned with her grandson than the 7-month-old whose body was fighting the heat in the car while she was thinking about all this stuff. Didn't even dawn on her.
Now, just so I understand correctly, Ms. Tracey, you said that you were going to get your other grandson for dinner. Okay.
That had been planned for several days.
Again, that's the thing that is more important to her at the time that she's thinking about. Getting out, taking care of the dog, playing the piano for an hour. Plans that she had made the day before, ignoring the plan that she had made that day, and that obligation that she made that day to protect that child.
After 4:30, I got in the car so that I would be there when they were feeding the pig, when you know.
She actually got back into the car to go feed the pigs. Got back into the car where Yuri, at 4:30, where Yuri's been now for 2.5 hours on her own. Still, nothing.
About how long after 4:30 did you realize that she was in the car?
I sat and talked today, probably 5 to 10 minutes, with him sitting on the lawnmower and me sitting in the car. And then I got out because Rebecca Aiden had come up, and I was going to see if I could help them. And all of a sudden, I realized I just had that flash of what had happened a year ago. And then all of a sudden, I realized we opened the door.
She's in the vehicle with Yuri, if we're believing her story, for 10 to 15 minutes. And still, Yuri's not at the top of her mind. It's not her primary focal point. Members of the jury, I think we've hit upon all of those things. When you look at all of those actions and inactions and choices that she made that day, it fits. It fits the definition of criminal negligence. It fits it. Again, you have to look at everything, not just the forgetting, but everything that went along with it. She shouldn't be forgetting. She has every reason to remember. It's 7 months old and it's in the back seat. That's the reason to remember. This isn't like, again, she says during her statement, I wasn't expecting it. Fair. That's fair. You weren't expecting it. But she didn't drive immediately home. She spent an hour with Yuri. She spent an hour with her. But the fact of the matter is, when she got home, I'm home, got to take care of my stuff. At that point. A 7-month-old is completely helpless. A 7-month-old deserves to be the center of your attention. A 7-month-old deserves to be taken out of that car and into the house. Members of the jury, when you're back there discussing what culpable negligence is, I would suggest that you look to the evidence. Because the evidence is there. It's Yuri's little hand frozen in a fist because of rigor mortis. It's Yuri lying on a table at the hospital when she should be sitting in the house of the grandmother. That is culpable negligence. Right there for all of us to see. Unfortunately, as I said earlier, Yuri deserved someone who was making her first. And instead, what she got was neglect. Not just neglect, but criminal neglect. She didn't deserve to be forgotten. She didn't deserve to be trapped. She didn't deserve to die. What she deserves is the person who is responsible for that criminal act to be held accountable for what she did. And that's what I'm asking you, the jury, to do, is hold Tracey Nix responsible for failing Yuri. Hold her responsible for that culpable negligence of not paying attention to her, of leaving her trapped and alone. Find her guilty as charged. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Coleman. Mr. Fletcher, defense?
Thank you. May it please the court, Mr. Coleman. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry I don't have a slideshow to present you. Basically, the state's evidence is the defense evidence. The truth is the truth. The facts are the facts. We haven't tried to hide anything here. We tried to present the truth to you. I think every detective said that Tracey Nix and